We head from the high banks of Daytona and Atlanta to the right and left-hand turns of Circuit of the Americas, a new look Circuit of the Americas, Ryan. Oh, by the way, folks, I'm joined now by Ryan Stevens, wintherace.info, ready to talk road course racing. Ryan, we just spent the last 2 weeks talking about Team Penske, Ford. They always draft the best, work together best. Of course, it was a Chevy and Toyota going to victory lane. But now that we turn to the road courses, are we still talking about like a team or a manufacturer, or has it become more of a driver specific discussion? Is there a team out there that catches your eye statistically at the road courses?
No, I will say real quick too. We talked about that when we talked for Daytona. We said, the Fords were always running up front, and then we put the average finish graphic up
That's
there,
right.
and it just so happens, Chevy and Toyota take those two races down. So very interesting. I think when we come here to COTA, it's a horse for the course type of track. At least that's what we've seen so far. A great example of this is Kyle Larson. If we look at all of the drivers who ran all five races in the same car, and the reason I say that is because like AJ and SVG kind of swapped around a little bit. So I just went all drivers who raced in five races in the same car on road courses. Larson had the best true average running position and had 2 wins.
Mm.
Now, if you look at COTA specifically, he was never really a factor. He ran in the teens, and what a lot of people don't realize is in three Gen 7 starts at COTA, his best finish is 14th.
Wow.
So while he still has all those stats, that just goes to show how dominant he was at the other road courses, because those stats include COTA. I just think, maybe there's something here he's just not picking up on or something like that, while you see some other drivers, and I think we'll talk about them in a minute, who, maybe they just see the turns better, they're better at braking here, or anything like that. I don't know what it is, but there's some guys who just consistently show up at COTA ready to go.
Yeah, Larson with those 2 wins. William Byron won, of course, last year's Circuit of the Americas race. I think Hendrick had, with Bowman at Chicago, 4 wins in 5 road course starts last season. So I guess if there is a team to focus on, it's Hendrick Motorsports, even if this may not be Kyle Larson's week. I'll ask about some of those drivers in a moment. You mentioned the heavy hitters, let's say. First name that jumps out to me still, even though it's been a couple years since he went to victory lane at a road course, is Tyler Reddick. He has an average starting position of 3.9 in the 17 next-gen road or street races he's attempted. 3.9 is pretty crazy. We know how important track position is at these road courses. What do you think of Tyler Reddick and other heavy hitters that might be on your list?
Yeah, he's one of the kind of the horse for the course that I'm talking about. He shows up ready to qualify, ready to race. And like you said, he's won here. He had a very fast car here last year, not a winning car, but still top five car all day long. And when we sim this race out 20,000 times, he actually does show up as our favorite on Win the Race. So Reddick has great numbers. He's going to always pop here, like you said. Another horse for the course that I was thinking about is coming off his win is Christopher Bell. He and Byron had the two best cars here last year, if you remember, and Bell was on a different strategy, and at the end of that race, a lot of people thought he was going to buzz by Gibbs and Byron and win the race. Gibbs didn't necessarily play too nice there, especially with a teammate. But Bell had a very fast car there. He's always showing up here. Reddick gets more hype on the road courses. I think it's because he qualifies so well too, and he does have more wins recently. But if you look at last year in the road courses, Bell ran just as many, around 35%-ish of his laps inside the top five as Reddick. So they're both right there. And I'd say they're both very, very strong at COTA.
Yeah, and Christopher Bell, you mentioned, finished second at COTA last year. People forget his first Cup win came on a road course, the Daytona road course 4 years ago. So he is a solid road course racer. We were talking before the show. Now that Bell has an Atlanta win on his resume, where are his weaknesses? Now he's even good at the super speedways. You can just count on Christopher
Yeah.
Bell to be pretty good everywhere. What about Ross Chastain? As a Texas guy, I love the Texas paint scheme that he and Busch Light are running this weekend. He got his first career win at COTA 3 years ago. What do the deeper numbers say about Ross?
He's got another top five there, and then he just missed it last year with a seventh place finish. This is an interesting one just because Trackhouse has typically brought, one fast car to road courses. The twist here is now SVG's a full-time Trackhouse driver, and Connor Zilisch is going to be in there.
Oh, true.
So you're kind of wondering where all the focus is going to go. I don't expect them to bring four very fast race-winning cars, but I could see them bringing one. and you just kind of don't know which one that's going to be. Chastain is running double duty. I thought that was great. With the new layout and everything, he'll be running for JRM on Saturday. So I do think that's nice. He'll get to kind of some more track time on a new layout. It's all freshly repaved too. So just for him to get out there and run some laps, I think that's great. And this is a track, like we said, you mentioned his stats, the win, top five, seventh. Yeah, if they give him the fast trackhouse car, I think he's definitely live.
Yeah, I believe he has an average finish of fourth at COTA in his 4 starts here. Tough to beat Ross Chastain. I want to talk about some drivers, and you've name dropped a few of them in our first few minutes here, but some drivers who may view this as an opportunity race. We talk about that at the super speedways, but road courses tend to favor the specialists as well. We'll start, of course, with Shane Van Gisbergen, who I've seen is the odds-on favorite to win. Of course, he won in his Cup Series debut at Chicago almost 2 years ago. Last year in Xfinity, he won 3 of the road course races and crossed the line at least top 5 in all the others. He was coincidentally penalized at the end of the COTA race. I think he finished 27th instead. But Shane Van Gisbergen, does he deserve to be the favorite this weekend, or has the field caught up to him?
This is interesting because we've only seen him here that one time, and he's in a College car. This year he'll be in the Trackhouse car. I had him as 13th best in that race. So I do my true performance scores for each race. So it kind of takes out, negates that penalty at the end. It's more just about how he ran when he was out there. So yeah, I didn't think he was great, which was a little surprising. And last year when we came into the race, as far as the odds were concerned, I think he was like 10 to 12 to 1 or something like that. Not the 5 to 1 he is now, where he's just the odds on guy to beat. But I mentioned this with Larson, just being different at COTA and elsewhere. So even if you include COTA in his road course stats last year, he ran over 50% of his laps inside the top 5.
Wow.
That includes COTA, where he just didn't do that at all. So yeah, I mean, this is something I think it's got to be in his head. Like, he's got to want to prove last year was just more of a fluke, I would think. And this year he's coming, bringing the heat, new team, full-time driver in the Cup Series. Does he deserve to be the outright favorite? I'm not sure, but I can't really argue against it either. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch him out there.
Yeah, and of course, folks will compare him to AJ Allmendinger, who is also full-time in Cup this season after battling SVG and Xfinity all last year. AJ Allmendinger is in a College car, but he is a 3-time Cup Series winner. Last year finished 6th at Circuit of the Americas. So if you were to compare AJ Allmendinger and SVG, does AJ have a shot of racing his way up there for the win?
Yeah, I had in 2022, I had him scored as the 4th best car here. He finished 33rd in that race.
He was up front at the end, yeah.
Yeah, he wrecked out in 23. Yeah, that was the one where that was the Chastain win, I believe. With him, Bowman, all there at the end. And then last year, he worked his way up from 14th to 6th. I had him 7th best in my true performance scores for that race. What I like about that one is there was no stage breaks or anything like that. He was just racing his way up toward the front. So he didn't really qualify well, starting 14th, but was able to race his way up through the field and, contend for a top 5. So I thought that was great. Hopefully this year he can show up a little faster here and qualify a little better. We just talked about SVG as well. I think there's a lot of comparison to SVG and AJ as like the road course guys. One thing I did notice, just looking at my stats, and I know this will be a lot of numbers here, but I'll try to put it in some real easy terms to understand, that SVG just seems to have a little more upside when he's good. So when he shows up fast. When they were both in the 16 last year, SVG ran 58% of his laps inside the top 10, but 55% of those laps inside the top 5. And if you look at AJ, a little more inside the top 10, but 20% less inside the top 5. So what that tells me is SVG more of like a 1 to 5 place driver when he's good, and AJ's more of like 5 to 10. At least that's what we saw in the 16. In the 13, they ran a couple races there too, swapping back and forth. Same thing, SVG 68% inside the top 10, 47% inside the top 5, and for AJ 52% inside the top 10, only 7% of that time was inside the top 5. So really, just to put it simple, I think when SVG shows up, he's fast. He shows up and he's ready to win that race. AJ, I think, and it might just be because he qualifies worse, he's got to kind of fight his way through the field, which is much harder in this Cup car.
Interesting. Those numbers very interesting to see head to head in virtually the same equipment. Of course, this year SVG with Trackhouse. Your point earlier about Trackhouse bringing 4 cars to this race. It's a huge undertaking for a still relatively young team. I'll ask about that 4th car in a minute, but we're talking about opportunity races. I'm thinking playoffs. I know it's early. Alex Bowman last year would not have made the playoffs without that win at Chicago. Circuit of the Americas is maybe his best track on the schedule. He has an average finish of 4.25 in the 4 COTA races. What chances do you give Alex Bowman of potentially breaking through and getting that first Austin win?
I like him a lot. I mean, it's another horse for the course. He's finished second, third, and fourth in the Gen 7 car here. What impressed me last year, we just talked about it with AJ. He, starts 17th. There's no stage break, so there's no like, I guess there was different strategies used in that race, but he raced from 17th to fourth place. That shows a lot. If he can just qualify better, start up near the front, he's able to pass here. I think he's definitely live. So that's the thing. Like I mentioned these horse for the courses, but then we mentioned a new layout and we mentioned a repave. So it's like I don't want to go all in on that, but there are some guys who just they show up, their cars are fast for COTA. So
Yeah.
I think that Bowman is definitely live again.
There's a softer tire that's being used this weekend that could help offset the fresh asphalt. Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see there. A couple other names I want to mention. Just want to throw these at you, Ryan. Ty Gibbs, still looking for his first win. It's been a rough go of it if you go back to the last few races of last season, first couple of this season. Ty Gibbs needs some positive momentum. You mentioned earlier, 3rd at COTA 1 year ago. Can Ty Gibbs break through this weekend and get his first Cup win?
So I'm glad you mentioned the tire wear and then go right into Ty Gibbs because this is one guy that I've been kind of fading on tire wear tracks. He shows up fast and I expect him to qualify well and I expect him to run up front. But if tire wear does really become an issue, I just feel like he's not taking care of him as much as some other drivers and he tends to kind of fade out. So yes, I think he'll be fast. I think he'll qualify really well. And again, repaved surface, new tire they haven't raced on before. We'll see. If it's not wearing too bad, I think he could run up front all day. So I think Ty Gibbs is definitely a nice sleeper to get his first Cup win.
And the last name I got to throw at you is Michael McDowell. Had a 13.6 road course average finish last season, moves over from Front Row and Ford to Spire and Chevrolet. I'm sure it's hard to know exactly what to think here, but he's won a Cup road course race before. Michael McDowell, what do you think of his odds this weekend?
But he's one that I do like if tires wear. Just nice veteran presence. He seems to take care of his equipment pretty well throughout a tire wear race. And then switching to Spire, that's a Hendricks engine. We mentioned HMS won, 4 of the 5 road courses last year. Maybe there's something to that. And again, in this Gen 7 car, he really has figured out the road courses. I don't know if that has to do with like the FRM Penske affiliation or whatever. That helped him, I think, qualifying obviously on the super speedways and stuff like that. But it's not like the Penske guys were good on road courses. I think this was just a McDowell thing. So, yeah, put him in a Chevy with some affiliation with Hendricks there, at least having that engine. I think it'd definitely be something to look at. In the 3 races with stage breaks at COTA, McDowell started 23rd, finished 7th, started 27th, finished 13th, started 20th, finished 12th. So he's always moving up through the field, whether it's strategy based or him passing or both. He knows a little something here. So if he can qualify better in this Chevy, yeah, I like McDowell, especially for like a top 10 or something like that.
Yeah, top 10 for sure. Win might be tough, but what you're kind of now you're kind of talking through it. I'm like, you're right. Have we mentioned Joey Logano or Blaney or Austin Cindric once in the last 15 minutes? I don't think so. Like, I wonder if McDowell was so damn good at these tracks in spite of driving a Penske aligned Ford. Now that he's in a Chevy, shoot, what if we just unlocked the best version of Michael McDowell? That's something I'll be watching. I'll be watching that pretty closely just to see if he surprises us. Before I let you go, Ryan, I teased this earlier. Got to ask you about Connor Zilisch. I know there's not much data to go off of here. So what does your gut say about the 18-year-old Trackhouse driver making his Cup debut this weekend?
Well, first, it's just such an awesome thing for NASCAR. I mean, Red Bull entering the Cup Series again as a sponsor, it should bring a ton of new, fans or eyes on the sport. My gut says he can contend for a top 10, which would be amazing. sports books think he could win this race 10 to 15% of the time, which
I saw that
I
he's
just
like the
don't see
second
it.
favorite behind SVG, which I'm bullish on on Zilisch. I think he could run top 5 this weekend, but second best odds to win.
Yeah.
That's a little crazy. That's bold even for me. I don't know about that.
It's a lot. I'm gonna, in doing what I do at Win the Race, as far as fantasy or betting, anything before pre-practice and qualifying, I'm just gonna stay away, and I'm gonna enjoy Connor Zilisch out there as a fan of NASCAR, and I think it's gonna be one heck of a show. It'll be so much fun to watch. Like, I cannot wait till Sunday for this race. It's gonna be awesome.
Oh yeah, I'm really looking. COTA every year has become one of my favorite races early in the season. One, it's usually the first road course, so you get to see some different names up front. In the past, you've had some stars like Kimi Räikkönen, Jordan Taylor. You've had other drivers come over and give this race a shot. Obviously, this year SVG full time, Connor Zilisch making his Cup Series debut. It's become kind of the road course to look forward to at the beginning of the year. It's also a home race for me, which I always appreciate, having a track less than 12 hours from my house. But Ryan, it was great to chat with you a little. I know it's tough going off last year's road course data. This is going to set the baseline for the rest of this year. Who are the road course ringers for 2025? We'll start to find that out here in just a few short days. Of course, folks can find more of your work at wintherace.info. Tons of great stats, analytics, fantasy, betting, insight, all that and more. Ryan, really appreciate your time. We'll catch up with you again soon, man.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Enjoy the race.